This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, as always on a Monday. Good to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Man, we got a lot to talk about today.
There is. You sent me an email, what might we talk about, and I just ran out of texting space. Yeah. You know, just a lot of things. But that's common for the era, don't you think?
I think so. Let's begin with the White House Correspondents Association dinner and the brouhaha that came from all of that this weekend. I think there's two things to kind of break out here and talk about. Number one, I do want to talk about what happened at the dinner itself.
Sure.
But let's talk about Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her rising national profile. Big piece in Politico this weekend, putting her at the center of attention. Basically how she's grown in influence in the Trump White House. Tell me why you think she has earned this trust of the president, and what does that say for her reputation here in Arkansas?
You know, I think I was on the ground floor of understanding Sarah Huckabee, if I do say so myself. Her dad used to say to me, "Why do you like my daughter so much and not me?" And well, just the way it goes. But I've, from a young age, when she was at Central, I had the opportunity to meet her, and I thought, what a bright, charming young woman she is. When she got involved in politics around her dad, she and I would always spar in kind of a feisty, I thought good-natured, if hostile way. She managed to be able to do that. On your show, once I did a guest interview of her when she was managing her dad's last presidential campaign, and it was a little bit of edge, but it was friendly. It was we liked and respected each other, and I think that's what's emerging up there, because she is infuriating liberal democratic America, because she deflects everything, and she when the president lies, as he lies, she retells the lie and defends the lie. She does. But then what a lot of the reporters are finding out is that you get away from her job. She helps us in her work. She's friendly. We sort of like her, and I think that's what I've always experienced. And there are those who are simply unforgiving about it. How can you stand up there and lie for the president? I will tell you that all presidents, press secretaries, dissemble, dice up the truth, if not lie. It's not your job to go out and say, "I know my boss is no good." You don't do that. You know,
right.
She has a harder job to do. And I also think that the Politico article revealed that she is still, I think, practicing largely from Arkansas influences. Her dad said that the press was overwhelmingly Democratic and biased in Arkansas. Not true, except for 2 or 3 overweight columnists living in Hillcrest. But we had a strong voice. But you know, I called him names: wide body, huckster, his eternal huffiness. Janet and I, you know, called her worse. And Sarah,
regrettably so, or are you still proud of all of that?
I'm not proud of it. But Sarah would always say, "Why do you hate my family so much?" I didn't. In fact, Huckabee was a pretty good, moderate Democratic governor in many ways. But they were easy to caricature, shall we say. And I think she's still in that Arkansas family, Huckabee family bunker. I think those who oppose, she believes, and she's trained from her childhood to believe, they're liberal elitists who resent that I'm Southern, rural, conservative, Baptist, Republican. I think that's what her motivation, her identity is. It stems from her family, and Trump sort of has replaced her dad as the focus of that. Now others say, oh, she's just an apparatchik, and she can be. When she works for Bozeman, she works for French Hill, I think so. But I think what the nation and world are getting a load of right now is what I think I came to understand in Arkansas.
It's interesting. All right, so let's talk about the White House Correspondents Dinner on Saturday night. A lot of sharp barbs thrown. A lot of people say it crossed the line of decency. In this age of Trump, did it cross the line?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if the line is a White House Correspondents' Dinner where a bunch of press people put on formal wear and invite celebrities to their tables and celebrate themselves, they think, in a way, in a nationally televised program that's sort of an Oscar ceremony for nerds. If that's where we draw the line, then the line has been there. I mean, there is no way for a good comic, which this woman, I think what she actually said was funny, but it belongs in a comedy house or a late night television talk show, to sit up there in front of the person you're insulting, who is an esteemed person in the national political arena, with them sitting right there. It's simply, by definition, it's going to land awkwardly and inappropriately. I've got a column for tomorrow that I'm quite proud of. It contrasts, I'll tell it briefly, Saturday night at the Clinton School, an old Gazette colleague, Ann Ferris Rosen, who edited and finished a book by her father, who was a Southern New York Times correspondent covering the Civil Rights Movement. She gave a program at the Clinton School, and I and many of her old colleagues and friends from the Gazette days in the 80s, we went and we listened to her talk about growing up in a family in a time when journalism had a great moral voice and in a journalistic tradition. And I think this will be in tomorrow's column, I won't go into too much detail, but I think we celebrated real journalism Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And I think a couple hours later, that nonsense in Washington, it's got to stop. Every year, at an apparently increasing decibel level, the thing is just inappropriate. And the institution of journalism is under high-level attack from the President of the United States. And it's tone deaf to go out there and bloody yourself with that kind of insular, smug nonsense. And I think I'm seeing on the Twitter and I'm hearing that people are saying we need to reconsider this whole concept, and this may be the time, and it's high time. Sometimes things run their course, and this may be one of the times that it has run its course, or to find a different way to celebrate the First Amendment and to honor some of these scholarships that is supposed to be what the Correspondents Dinner is about. And right? It should be about, but it's wholly out of hand, and it suggests a media that deserves what it's getting in some respects. When the President of the United States is calling you fake, don't be fake. You know? Yeah. Let's take a quick commercial break and come back and talk some state politics. We're going to talk 2nd Congressional District, some new polling out, and we're going to talk about the John Woods trial, some developments there over this last week. Certainly. I'm Roby Brock. I'm with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and we are back right after this.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
And welcome back to the program. I'm Roby Brock, joined with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Let's pick up with some polling from PPP, Public Policy Polling. I think they're out of North Carolina, threw some numbers out of 18 House seats this past week. The 2nd Congressional District being one of them shows the race 47% French Hill, 42% Clark Tucker, would indicate that he is within some sort of striking distance here. You say, though, that you might be a little dubious about this poll.
Public policy polling, I think, and I'll take this back next week if I've got this wrong, but I believe it's affiliated with the Democratic Party in some way. I think it is. They do some polling for Democrats. Now, that is not to discredit the professionalism of their work, but it is to say, first of all, this is doing work for the Democratic Party, and its history is polling in a way that is leaning toward or favors Democrats, which doesn't mean the numbers are bogus. In fact, when I said, put on Twitter, here's some interesting numbers, but this is sort of from the Democratic Rasmussen. Rasmussen is a group that does Republican. Somebody said, well, no, 538 rates all the posters, applies a formula to their accuracy, and public policy polling is among the top with a B+, and Rasmussen is a C+. Okay, I stand corrected. It doesn't change the fact that they're couched in the Democratic Party. What it means is, after they get their basic number, we all should understand they're pushing to see what will work. They ask follow-up questions. Well, it's 47-42 Hill over Clark Tucker. What if you knew that French Hill voted for, if I told you French Hill voted for a health care reform that the President of the United States called too mean and which would have endangered coverage of pre-existing conditions? And suddenly they say, oh, look here, we can ask one more question and it's 48-47. The purpose of that is to serve Democratic interests, strategic, but also to show, to demonstrate politically how numbers can change
right.
and what the future may hold as the campaign messages are forthcoming. So as long as we know that, still, 47-42, that's a race. Still, public policy polling is as bad as me. At least I pat the heads of the other three. They don't even think they exist.
Well, I was going to ask about the fact that there are no other matchups.
There is this broad assumption, far transcending my transgressions here, that assumes and fast forwards that Clark Tucker is the nominee. He has much more money. He has much more political experience. He has much more political skill. He's demonstrating it in a new ad in which he talks about his bout with cancer and how that influenced his decision to run. So I think that's going to be the race. But rather than predicting that he's going to win and giving a sort of a courtesy head tap to the others, the National Democratic folks are just already, they've got him not penciled in, they've got him written in ink that he's the guy, which is interesting. And you're going to poll that for real soon.
We are. We're polling this week on that. And we are going to throw just a little programming note, we're going to throw some live callers in there as well, because I think one of the things we learned from the Republican polling that we did was that we were undersampling some of the younger voters out there. You just cannot reach them without going to cell phones, and you got to do live callers to do that. So we will have some live callers.
I thought you were already doing that.
No, we do auto polling, robo polling, and then we do sometimes do live callers.
Okay.
But we're going
to do it here.
Beef that up a little bit more, particularly this election season.
All right, good.
All right, let's shift to the John Woods trial. We are learning that former State Senator John Woods was a lot more active than we thought just with General Improvement Fund money. Apparently he had loans to loans to loans with people, if this is all proven true. This trial and what has been brought to light has put a death knell in the General Improvement Fund, the GIF.
I believe we're
funding.
done with that, yeah.
Should it change anything else, though, is my question. Are we learning some other things that have happened that clearly appear to have broken the law? Does it require even more ethics formality in the state legislature?
One thing that I found near sickening was, and I didn't follow up on it other than my initial reaction when Doug Thompson, who's doing some great reporting from the trial, when he put on Twitter that there had just been testimony that in advance of one of the legislative sessions, Woods had received a $35,000 loan, just something to tide him over, walking around money from a payday lender. Well, and that wasn't disclosed. We didn't know that.
Wasn't on his statement of financial interest.
Should have been, but wasn't. That's just sort of, that may not have been a strict registered lobbyist, but it was corrupt, if so, nonetheless. And we need to be more cognizant of that. I mean, there are ways for people to give walking around thousands to our elected officials without our knowing about it, and to the extent that we can do better, we need to do better.
It's really incumbent upon John Woods to
of course,
have
it's
disclosed
up to him.
that.
Yes, but what if he doesn't? What do we do? And how do we know? Absent an FBI can't investigate everybody, and then
although it appears that they may be investigating everybody.
The other thing is John Woods was an operator in the legislative system in a way that some of us who understand the process kind of admired. I remember we would sit around and think about, you know, if you want to get a constitutional amendment passed, get John Woods to write your ballot title if you're going to refer it through the legislature, because he knows how to phrase these things in a way that makes the ballot title appear proper. And then he also, not only as the indictment charges, would he direct money to this Ecclesia College and then get some allegedly kicked back, but then he'd go around to other unsuspecting colleagues, and he had earned enough of their trust. He would say, hey, here's a good deal. If you've got some of your general improvement allotment still available, if you don't have anything to do with it, look at this deal. This is a good deal. This is a work-study college up here doing some work. And he got some people to do that. Michael Lamro was a good friend, and I think Lamro was an excellent president pro tem and did a good job as chief of staff to Hutchinson. But he was sort of in Wood's orbit. Woods was his pal, and they worked together. We need to now look more closely at all levels of legislative influence. The guy who's the most collegial, who's getting colleagues to do things, why is he doing that? You know, and the biggest thing, then I'll quit. Warwick Sabin worked up a powerful, good, I thought, well, not powerful, an adequate to good ethics amendment a few years ago. And he had the thing done. And John Woods, you know what? Remember what John Woods did?
They co-opted it.
He said, "Let me in on this. I can help you over here in the Senate, and we can make this thing better." And he managed to put an extension on term limits in there. He took an ethics, an honest to goodness, seriously intended ethics reform amendment, and got legislators more time in office, and himself presumably, except his legislative service was interrupted arbitrarily. So it has been. It's just it doesn't indict anybody else. It just casts. It sends this odor over Little Rock, over the state capitol, that requires that all of us, press included, if not press especially, somehow do better.
Be more vigilant.
You got vigilant.
And it's not the first time there's been a cloud over the state capitol. We could go back in time in history and
there's kind of a permanent cloud, but it's darkening. It's darkening from northwest Arkansas in this particular matter.
He's John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. As always, good to be with you.
You betcha.
I'll see you next week.
Look forward to it.
Thank you so much for tuning in. That's all for today's program. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.